The rain fell in steady sheets across the city skyline, blurring the view from the towering glass windows of Bennett Industries. Inside the CEO's office, the lights were low, casting long reflections over the polished floor. Ethan Bennett stood with his hands in his pockets, staring out at the storm that mirrored the turbulence in his mind. He wasn't a man easily shaken. Years of running one of the most powerful corporations in New York had forged him into something steel-like. But lately, something, or rather, someone, had begun softening that armor. Her name was Lily Hart. Lily had come into his life by accident, or perhaps fate. She was the new administrative assistant in the marketing department, a woman of quiet strength, the kind that didn't need to be loud to be seen. The first time Ethan had truly noticed her was the day she'd stood up for a junior employee during a heated boardroom meeting. She'd spoken with calm conviction, defending someone who had no power, even when she knew it might cost her job. That day, Ethan had watched her carefully, intrigued by the courage in her voice and the compassion in her eyes. But their connection had truly begun one fateful evening 3 months later, long before she ever knew who he really was. It had been late, past midnight, when Ethan's car spun out on a slick mountain road outside the city. He'd been driving home from a business retreat, exhausted, his mind clouded with the endless noise of corporate battles and personal emptiness. The car had skidded, slammed into the guardrail, and rolled into the embankment. He'd lost consciousness, waking only to the faint scent of gasoline and the blurry image of someone tugging at his seatbelt. It was Lily, though he hadn't known her name then. She'd been driving home from visiting her sister in a nearby town when she saw the wreck. Without hesitation, she'd climbed down the slope through the rain, broken the car window with a rock, and pulled him free just minutes before the engine caught fire. When he came to in the hospital, he remembered only her soft voice saying, "You're going to be okay. Just hold on." Then she was gone before he could even thank her. It wasn't until weeks later, when he saw her again at his company, that he realized who she was. Their eyes met across the office floor, and the recognition hit him like lightning. She froze for a moment, her lips parting in shock, before quickly turning away. She hadn't known the man she saved was the CEO of the very company she worked for. From that moment, something shifted between them, an unspoken awareness, a shared memory of fire and fear, and the fragile thread of gratitude that bound them. Ethan began to notice her more, the way she smiled when helping others, the tired shadows under her eyes that hinted at burdens she never spoke of. He found himself asking about her work, walking by her department more often than necessary, and making excuses to see her. It wasn't romantic at first. It was something deeper, a pull toward someone who reminded him what humanity felt like again. Then one evening, as he was leaving the office, he found her in the parking lot struggling with her old sedan. The hood was open, steam rising, and she was on the verge of tears. He approached quietly. "Need some help?" he asked. She startled, then gave a small, embarrassed smile. "It's fine. Just the radiator again. I'll figure it out." But she didn't. He rolled up his sleeves, ignoring her protests, and within minutes, he was helping her patch a leak with a spare clamp he found in his trunk. Rain began to fall lightly again, and they both laughed at the absurdity of it. It was the first time he'd heard her laugh, a sound so genuine it disarmed him. When he dropped her home that night, he saw the small apartment she shared with her 7-year-old son, Noah. The boy ran out to greet her, wrapping his arms around her legs. Ethan watched silently from the car as she knelt to hug him, the weariness melting from her face. That's when he realized why her eyes always carried that trace of fatigue. She wasn't just a woman trying to survive her job, she was a single mother holding an entire world together. After that, their lives began to intertwine naturally, almost imperceptibly. Ethan found reasons to check in on her department, to send small tokens of appreciation her way. When her son fell sick one week and she had to miss work, Ethan personally ensured she got paid leave. She didn't know it was his doing until later, when the HR memo bore his signature. "Why would you do that?" she'd asked him one afternoon when she finally confronted him. He looked at her across his desk, his tone quiet. "Because once, you didn't hesitate to save a stranger's life. I was that stranger." Her lips parted slightly, her eyes softening. "You don't owe me anything." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but that doesn't mean I can't care." Months passed. The bond between them deepened, slowly, tenderly, like the first light after a storm. They shared coffee breaks, stories of childhood, and moments that felt too fragile to name. Yet Lily always kept a careful distance. She'd been hurt before. Her ex-husband had left when Noah was only 2, vanishing with debts and broken promises. She couldn't afford to trust easily again, not even a man like Ethan Bennett. One night, however, everything changed. A scandal erupted within Bennett Industries, an internal leak that threatened a major merger. Evidence pointed to Lily's department. She was called in for questioning, her face pale but composed. Ethan sat in silence, watching as his board members accused her of leaking sensitive data. She denied it firmly, but they presented damning proof: emails, timestamps, data trails. She was suspended pending investigation. Ethan wanted to defend her, to shout that she couldn't possibly have done it, but as CEO, he had to maintain neutrality. It tore him apart. Later that night, he found her sitting on the front steps of her apartment, holding Noah close, tears glistening in her eyes. She looked up at him as his car pulled in. "I didn't do it," she whispered. "I swear to you." "I know," he said softly. "I believe you." And he meant it. The following days were chaos. Ethan secretly launched his own investigation, determined to uncover the truth. He worked tirelessly, sleepless nights fueled by guilt and fury. Eventually, he discovered the real culprit, a senior executive who had been using Lily's computer to cover his tracks. When Ethan confronted the man, his rage was quiet but deadly. Within hours, the culprit was arrested, and Lily's name was cleared. Ethan went straight to her apartment that evening. She opened the door cautiously, confusion turning to shock when she saw him standing there in the cold. "You saved me once," he said quietly, his voice low and rough. "Now it's my turn to protect you." Her eyes filled with tears. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he interrupted gently. "I did, because people like you don't come around often. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You reminded me what it means to feel again." Lily stepped back, overwhelmed by the intensity in his eyes. Noah peeked from behind her, smiling shyly. Ethan crouched down to meet the boy's gaze. "Your mom is the bravest person I've ever met," he said softly. "Don't ever forget that." After that night, things were never quite the same. Their walls began to crumble. Lily allowed him into her life a little more each day, dinners that turned into late-night talks, walks through the park. With Noah, shared laughter that stitched their broken edges together. Ethan, who had lived in a world of boardrooms and profit margins, found himself yearning for simple things: Noah's drawings on his desk, Lily's smile in the morning light. But not everything was easy. The media soon caught wind of their growing closeness. Gossip spread through the company, rumors that she'd used him to clear her name. Lily grew distant again, afraid that his reputation would suffer because of her. One evening, she came to his office and placed her resignation letter on his desk. "I can't let them ruin what you've built," she said quietly. "You deserve better." He stood, disbelief etched across his face. "Lily, you're not leaving." "I have to," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "This, whatever it is between us, it's too complicated." He moved around the desk and took her trembling hands in his. "You think I care what they say? I've spent my life building walls, protecting a company, a name, but I forgot to protect what really matters. You and Noah are my only reason to fight now." She looked up at him, her breath catching as he said her name like a promise. Over time, love found them, not as a fairy tale, but as something real, earned through struggle and trust. Ethan didn't sweep her into luxury. Instead, he built a life where she could stand beside him, not beneath him. He funded a scholarship in her name for single parents pursuing education, saying it was her idea when the board asked. A year later, Bennett Industries held a charity gala. Lily attended, radiant in a simple navy gown. Ethan stood before the crowd, speaking about resilience and courage, his eyes finding hers across the room. When he stepped down from the stage, he crossed to her, ignoring the whispers that rippled through the hall. He took her hand in front of everyone and said, "You saved me once, Lily. Not just from that crash, but from myself. And every day since, you've reminded me that strength isn't power, it's kindness. I meant it when I said it's my turn to protect you. Always." The room fell silent as she smiled through tears. "You already have," she whispered. In that moment, the storm that had once raged through both their lives finally quieted. The CEO who had everything but love, and the woman who had nothing but heart, found peace, not in grand gestures, but in the promise of ordinary days shared together. And as the city lights shimmered through the glass walls behind them, Ethan Bennett knew that this fragile, beautiful life, was the only deal he'd ever truly wanted to win.